Saturday at 1:45, GWS versus St Kilda kicked off the Super Saturday, and it was a pretty boring first half, I thought. No team really played great. I think GWS were quite clearly the better team. They were able to transition the ball a lot better. St Kilda were forced into a lot of stupid errors. A lot of kicks around the 70-meter mark, just outside their defensive 50, were turned over when they didn't need to be. There was a lot of poor kicking, but also poor decision making. They just looked like they were trying to bite off a bit more than they can chew, and it didn't work, and that played right into the hands of GWS, and they were able to capitalize off those turnovers really, really well. One play that I can think of is Mitch Owens taking a spectacular mark in the back 50, in the back pocket, and gets the ball, blood clearly rushing through his head, bit too much adrenaline after taking such a spectacular mark. Plays on, kicks the ball slightly over Josh Battle's head, and Jesse Hogan takes a simple snap at goal and kicks it. And it just showed that the Saints were a bit too quick, weren't playing their game, and just weren't playing comfortably at all. And that's obviously due to GWS's pressure. There were a lot of injuries in this game as well. Sam Taylor had a horrible concussion. Stephen Cornelio looks to have had a really, really bad knee injury. He twisted it and sort of landed it and put too much pressure on it sideways, and it looked like it buckled. I also saw Kieran Briggs holding off his wrist, and then you also had Max King injuring his knee at the end of the third quarter, and that doesn't show good signs for either team. GWS are obviously going to be playing Carlton, and St Kilda are going to be playing the Bulldogs, so it's going to be interesting to see how both teams play without some of their best players. But going into the second half, St Kilda started really well, kicked 2 goals in 2 minutes. Jack Steele from just outside 50, and Brad Hill running into the 50 and kicking it from about 40 out. But then they just stopped. They just couldn't move the ball. GWS held up really, really well. And that's about when Stephen Cornelio did his knee. And then after the third quarter, started off slow in the fourth, but then St Kilda came back, and it was a 6-goal lead. It was relatively safe. The way St Kilda had played, there was no indication they were going to come back, but they did. Just a goal after goal, and it got to about a 4-goal lead with, I think it was 8 minutes left. And you thought, maybe they've probably got to get another quick couple here. They took their time, and they were able to get it down to a 1-goal game. GWS went and scored a behind. St Kilda were able to get it in their forward line with a minute to go, where Caminiti kicked the goal, and then it was just a rush, 42 seconds left, I think. They got the centre clearance, and then Jack Peatling took a really, really good mark to save the game for GWS in what was a very weird game overall, I thought. But the Giants were able to get a good win with some really poor injuries, and they're able to carry their undefeated start through 2024. Then the second game was also another very, very interesting game. It was between Carlton and Adelaide. I didn't catch a lot of this game as I was at the Bentley Social watching the St Kilda game with a few fans because a few people hosted it. It was a really good event, I thought, but I wasn't able to catch a lot of this game. It was a quite interesting game, I thought, from the little I did catch. The Blues, I thought, dominated most of the game, yet they weren't able to put it on the scoreboard. They were accurate early, but when they had the ball in possession in the second half, they just weren't accurate. They couldn't kick straight. And when Adelaide kicked 16-4, there's very little you can do about that. I thought they defended relatively well, both teams, but the attacking firepower was clearly better for both sides. Sam Walsh returned and had a really, really good game. He had 34 touches on return, which is excellent. And the big thing for Adelaide is that they were able to get their midfield going. That, yes, Carlton lost Adam Chera, but they did regain Sam Walsh. But Adelaide's midfield was much better. They put Rankin in there. He had 20 centre bounce attendances. He was much, much better. He was very impactful. He had 23 touches, kicked 3 goals. And so part of the problem with moving him into the midfield is that theoretically you wouldn't get the forward damage he would normally provide. But he was able to do it this week, and he was probably the most impactful player on the ground. Jake Saligo had another excellent game, making his case for arguably the most improved player, I think, so far this year. Had 27 touches, 6 clearances, and was very good in the middle, provided a lot of speed that they had been missing, and he was very important. Matt Crouch collecting the ball, and I thought Mitch Hinge also had probably his career best game. had 26 touches, 4 marks, 3 tackles, also had a couple of clearances and almost 400 meters gained. So he had a really, really good game off of halfback. He provided a bit of speed, and he was much better with the ball than what he had been previously. Taylor Walker had a much better game than he had all year. Charlie Kerner kicked 4 as well, but he kicked 4-3, so you'd probably want that to be a bit better for them to win. But I thought Ben Key started like a house on fire. I think he kicked 3 first half goals in the end, and then Rochelle kicked 2 as well. So they're able to get impact from their players that were able to provide it last year that hadn't this year, and that's what got them back into the game. And Carlton got out to a 3-goal lead late in the fourth quarter, but Adelaide really, really pushed to come back. I thought Sam Berry was good as the sub. He provided a bit of energy in the midfield, and he obviously kicked the match-winning goal. And it was really good for them to be able to get this win, and hopefully they can build off the back into the next part of 2024. And then we had Gold Coast versus Hawthorn up at People's First Stadium. And it was just a very dour affair. Gold Coast were very clearly the better team. They had almost 100 more disposals. They had 60 more kicks, 30 more handballs, and 20 more inside 50s. So it just shows their utter dominance in the middle. They're able to get the ball first use multiple occasions. Hawthorn's highest disposal getter in their midfield was 14, I believe, with Warple, and they were just not able to do anything, Hawthorn. They didn't have any options. They weren't able to do anything in attack. Gold Coast defense really held up. Obviously, no Brewster, no Lewis, but they just were very, very unflattering. They tried to move Sicily there, and it didn't work. D'Ambrosio was okay off halfback, but when you've only got one player over 20 touches in a game, there's not much you can do. Finn McGuinness had a good game up forward, kicked 3 goals, but outside of that, there was very little. David Swallow kicked 3 as the sub. Ben King had 4 goals for, so it could have been a career night for him if had he have kicked accurately. Jad Walter showed some really promising signs as a key forward, so did Ethan Reid. Sam Glahisi continues a really good start for him to start the season. Matt Rowell had 22 touches and a goal. Noah Anderson had 36 and a goal, so continuing his excellent form to start the year and probably polls another 3 Brownlow votes. Jared Witts had 17 touches and 35 hitouts, so just doing the average for him. And it was just a really, really solid win for Gold Coast, and Hawthorn were really, really disappointing, continuing what has been a very disappointing year for them so far. And then on the Saturday night, we also had Port Adelaide versus Fremantle in what was a very tough game to watch. It was very, very defensive. Scores were only 66 to 63, and so it's not a game you would want to necessarily watch back. It was 9 goals 12 to 9 goals 9, so a bit of inaccuracy as well. But Port Adelaide got a really, really good win. They were down by 9 points, I believe, with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter when Brayshaw kicked that good goal, just put it on his boot. Sarong did the same thing earlier in the match, and it really sort of gave them a bit of a buffer. But Port Adelaide were able to get something that they hadn't gotten all game, which was a contested mark in the forward 50. There was Charlie Dixon, and Alex Pearce had played really, really well on him prior to that, but he was just able to take the one mark. It got him back into the game, and then they were able to get it inside 50. Horne-Francis in a one-on-one with not Josh Walker, the other Walker. What's his name? 31. Brandon Walker, that's his name. And they were able to just get it over the back to him, and he took a good mark. Was able to convert it as well, which is really important in closer games. And that's how they got the win. I thought it was a Fremantle-dominated game, and they've essentially done that in every game they've played this year. It's clear that they want to implement this style into every game they play and play the game on their terms, and it's worked for the most part. But if you do want to play in close games, you need to be able to score, not relying on crazy shots from like Sarong and from Brayshaw to keep you in the games. And for them to score 63 points just shows that their forward line still hasn't clicked. They're going to be getting Darcy back hopefully next week, and maybe that changes things, but we're still not sure. Josh Tracy had a really good game. He was able to get up the ground and was really impactful in the contested areas, especially in the air. I thought he had a really, really good game. But outside of that, Fremantle again are struggling to win the close games because they can't find ways to score. And then on the Sunday, we had North Melbourne versus Geelong. let's skip straight over that. And then we had West Coast versus Richmond. I tipped West Coast, thankfully. It was a very weird game. Richmond obviously decimated with injuries, and it sort of showed a little bit. Sorry, did I say West Coast? Richmond. But Jake Waterman kicked 6 goals. He was the standout player of the game. 13 marks, 18 disposals, and 6 goals too. So 8 scoring shots was a career best night for him. Tim Kelly had 29 touches and 6 tackles. Shea Bolton had 3 goals and 20 disposals. So continuing his push for the All-Australian team. Nick Vlastuin had 24 touches and 9 marks. And then Lafau showed some really good signs as a key forward as well for their future, but they just don't have many options at the moment at Richmond. Dusty Martin wasn't at his best at all today, just showing a bit of inconsistency compared to his form last week against St Kilda, and it just was a really dour game from Richmond. Even though they started really well, I think they kicked the first 4 goals of the match and showed that maybe the form is back and they can actually get a couple good wins for the season so far, but they just sort of stopped. I didn't catch the first 4 goals. I only got after that. So I can't really talk about too much about how they did it. But West Coast were just able to move the ball very easily. They were a bit more physical. Harley Reid had an excellent game, got the Rising Star nomination. And it was a really, really good performance in the end from a team that desperately needed a win. And so it was good stuff from them in the end. But that's going to be the end of this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button. Really help push the video in the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content. Leave your thoughts about the round in the comment below, and thanks for watching.